Listen, we didn't do a wardrobe change today because we just weren't feeling it, okay? Well, hello. This episode is going to air on a fabulous day, namely on my birthday. Yes, so I give it to you as a gift. Now, this is part 2 of a series on layoffs, and this is the one for those of you who have observed that it's hashtag layoff season and you're concerned layoffs may be coming to an office near you. And if we're prepared, we're going to feel less scared. So let's prep today so we don't have to freak out tomorrow, okay? By the way, part 1 was episode 46 and shares advice for if you've been laid off. So I recommend that one first if you're currently experiencing a layoff. But it's also interesting to hear so you know what to do if you, in fact, are laid off. So that resource is there for you after you watch or listen to this episode if you want to check it out. And real quick before we get to today's agenda, for my new friends here, hi, I'm Julie Bethany, and I create content to empower you to live your best, most authentic life as the truest to you version of who you are. And I give you the tools and resources to do that here. And I should say, if we're not official friends yet, I'd love to keep hanging out with you, and we can do that if you subscribe to the show here and or come hang out with me where I'm most active, which is on the gram at Julie Bethany, where I share daily empowerment for you in even more bite-sized bits. Okay, let's do it. This is what we're going to cover today. We'll start with what the signs are that a layoff might be coming to an office near you, then how to prepare for a potential layoff, then which checklist items you should complete if you do get laid off, and finally, how you can be the best support to a friend who got laid off and resources I have for you to share with them or for yourself if you end up needing them. We are covering the gamut today. Okay, let's talk about the signs a layoff may be coming to an office near you. So I just finished my 5th annual read of the entire Harry Potter series. Judge me if you want, but I've done it every winter since I moved to NYC. And it's a tradition I started because I didn't go home for the first Thanksgiving here and knew no one in the city. So for that long weekend, I just got the Harry Potter series and started reading because I'd never read it all and wanted to know what the hype was all about. Conclusion, it's worth it. Anyway, I bring this up because like the Elder Wand, if you're familiar, or with magic in general in that series if you're not, according to Dumbledore, magic always leaves traces. And I say this because layoffs are always preceded with signs that are actually more easy to spot than you'd think if you know what to look for. To amend Dumbledore's statement for today, impending layoffs always leave traces, and usually in management spaces. I'm a poet, and I know this because I worked for a company for half a decade that did many rounds of layoffs, and there are patterns, let me tell you. And when I was first laid off, I could sense a general sense of doom. But the second time, I predicted it over a month beforehand and predicted exactly how it would go down. And I was correct on all accounts. Layoffs are preceded with signs. So let's go over what those are so you can spot them. Firstly, if layoffs have been visiting a lot of other companies, especially if they're in your industry, with the skill and accuracy of the Grim Reaper, and you're seeing it all over the news, hint like what we're kind of seeing right now as I film this, it's like the Smokey Bear signal for a campsite having a very high wildfire risk in that moment. The tech industry gets targeted a lot for this, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a ripple effect on other industries too. For example, I've worked a lot in the real estate and office space industry, and as other companies struggle, so do the structures that house them, right? So if we're seeing a lot of layoff announcements at any given time, more are likely to follow like fire to smoke. Next, I already mentioned a feeling of impending doom occurring around a layoff moment, but let's talk about what that actually is. So humans really are super perceptive, and if there is something bad coming, and a few people know about it and can't talk about it, it's going to create some interesting dynamics in the company and interpersonally. And a huge indicator of this is you will see your leaders and or direct managers start to act differently. Why? Well, if you had to keep a secret that could negatively impact someone's entire life from them, of course, you're likely going to want to interact with them less or not at all. So if your leaders and or managers start becoming more withdrawn, unavailable, silent, start canceling one-on-one time with you, or start acting outright weird, which has been the case in every layoff I've ever experienced, something may be coming. We pick up on vibes. And in the office and or from your leadership, there will be a weird vibe present, and they will likely be personally present less too. Okay, the next sign is company and or individual performance wackiness. For example, if your company has a lovely system where only a few people get a 5 out of 5 on their performance reviews, so everyone else has to be rated in the mediocre range because they can't give out a gold star to everyone performing well, even if they earned it. Or there are downright lies in your performance review. Hear me out. And we would like to think this isn't possible, but you'd be surprised, and it's happened to me. You can start to question some things. Also, if you have to give your direct reports or are given a whole spiel about how the company didn't perform as well as we would have liked, and their bonus is going to be impacted because of it, that's a pretty good indicator the company isn't doing that great. And companies not doing great financially are going to start looking at how they can save money, right? By cutting costs to continue operating and being a company, which means often fewer people doing more work. Raise your hand if you've ever been personally victimized by layoffs lowering morale because now you're doing your Ron's and Hermione's work too. The moral of the story here is that there will be signs there are layoffs coming. Things may change for the worse in the economy, and you'll start hearing news that other layoffs are occurring out here. You'll start picking up on company messaging in here or lack thereof that is either negative or suddenly non-existent. Some all hands meetings or company meetings that usually have company updates in them may be rescheduled for later, and your leaders will start putting off a weird vibe, and you'll be able to feel an ominous feeling at work. You just will, because humans are perceptive like that. It's a blessing and a curse. But remember, it may not impact your department or role or you personally if you do start to see these things happening or perceive them. It might just be happening in another part of the company. I've been through many seasons of layoffs where I wasn't one of the ones directly impacted, but sometimes my direct reports were. And if you're seeing those signs, you may be the one having to pick up the slack for someone else once the layoffs occur. So do keep in mind if you're willing to do that, or if it's maybe time to look for a new adventure, as they say. So if you're seeing the signs, the writing's on the wall that a layoff is probably coming. So how can you best prepare for a potential layoff? This one we can do a little more rapid fire. So if you think a layoff may be coming to an office near you, here's what we're going to do. First of all, go grab that lovely employee handbook. I know, but do it. You may or may not have ever looked at before and take a look at a few points. You want to look for if your employee handbook mentions anything around termination, and you want to look for if it mentions severance specifically. That'll give you an idea of if the company will take any form of care of you after a potential layoff. Keep in mind, though, that you don't have to panic if there's nothing explicitly there. Severance and continued health insurance and other benefits may continue for an amount of allotted time, even if it's not mentioned in your actual employee handbook. Next, and still camping in the employee handbook, so don't put it away quite yet, we want to check if it mentions under a section likely called something like data confidentiality, if you can save work you've created on your devices or send it to yourself. If it doesn't, you can then save your work for your portfolio. Of course, that work would be work that excludes proprietary company information though, right? This is good stuff to have if you can, because sometimes interviewers will have you present work you've done before or a portfolio of work depending on your industry. I've had times where I couldn't save that work because of those clauses though, and just let the recruiter know I couldn't show them a presentation from something else I'd done at that company so I could create them something new. Then we're going to look at our recent emails and chats and figure out who we want to have in our network or stay connected to just in case you or they are no longer at your company, and go find them on LinkedIn and connect with them. Which brings me to the next thing we're going to do, which is, and you totally knew this was coming, we're going to update our LinkedIn and resume to reflect all the awesome things we've done since we last updated it, right? There are also wonderful services that can help you maximize your resume to make it get more smoothly through the AI software that recruiters do use. And I recommend doing that if you want to. Then, this is an optional step, but I say put that open to work banner on for recruiters only on your LinkedIn and start applying to roles in your spare time just in case. This is because it's really nice to already be in the process of interviewing if you are laid off instead of having to start in the moment it happens. But that's up to you. Next, we want to start cutting back on spending and start saving more from the paychecks you do have now just in case. I know it is so not fun, but if you can, your future self will thank you whether or not a layoff impacts you personally. If you don't know if severance will be a thing or not, or how long it'll take to get a new role in this economy, this is especially important if you can do it. The first time I was laid off, it was a time when everyone and their brother was getting laid off too. Both the Weasley twins were just going to run with it. And I was unemployed for 6.5 months. I don't say that to scare you in the least, but just to understand why I say all that. Severance kindly covered part of that time period for me, but once it was finished, unemployment didn't even cover my rent. So the more you can save now just in case, the better. And this may sound crass, but seriously, if you feel like a layoff may be coming to an office near you, start organizing your company hardware and software if you have any ASAP Rocky. I cleaned out my entire desk and desktop before I was laid off the second time. I could feel it coming like a sixth sense because remember, layoffs leave traces and signs. So I cleaned up all my files and deleted personal info off my company phone and laptop. I made sure that when I walked into that meeting with a leader plus HR that was graciously scheduled on my calendar for like 2 days beforehand, so I had time instead of 15 minutes like the first time I was given that call, which is, by the way, another sign a layoff is coming, by the way, namely that HR is present for a call or meeting that is called company or department staffing or structure updates. I had all the passwords written out to hand over with my laptop and phone and didn't need to retrieve anything else from my desk and could just walk out into the sunrise after that meeting straight into my freedom, because it's way better to remove the items now but put them back later if you don't get impacted by a layoff than to have to walk out with them in a cardboard box in front of everyone if you are. Finally, and I'd say this is one of the most important steps here, but make a plan for if you are laid off. You want to have a game plan to put into action if you are laid off beforehand, because then regardless of whatever you're feeling in that moment and however up in the air your future feels, you'll know what steps you're going to take right away. And I promise that'll make you feel much better if you end up in that position. And I will help you craft your game plan here and now, so let's do it. And if you've already been laid off, it's okay. We can make the game plan now and put it into action now, and it will still be helpful. So let's make our game plan. Here's what you can do if you've been laid off, or what you can prepare to do if you are anticipating it. She's a checklist, and I go much deeper into this, by the way, in episode 46 if you want to hear more about how to do each piece of the checklist or the why behind why it's on the checklist in the first place. So on the checklist, we're not going to freak out, but we are going to take a deep breath. That's step one, because I promise you there are good steps to follow to maximize that time should it come, and to find a potentially much better role that pays even more than you had before. And even if you don't hold the belief that I do, that you will find what is meant for you, and that this is a step to getting obstacles out of the way to clear your path to it, this is the moment to put your own oxygen mask on first. So you are your priority in this moment. Next on the checklist, once we've breathed, we're going to read through our separation agreement and ask questions if we have them around any severance payments, interesting language on the agreement you don't understand, continuation of benefits like health insurance, etc., and take care of that agreement and signing if we're going to do that. Then, if severance or benefits aren't an option, you can apply for anything you need to through your state, like unemployment, healthcare, etc. We also want to look at former benefits and where they're going, like our 401k or 403b, etc., whatever you have. I talk more again about all that in episode 46. Then we're going to, if we didn't before, do the updates. So we're going to update our resume, our LinkedIn, post our open to work banner to all viewers, and make an announcement on LinkedIn that you're looking for your next great opportunity if you're comfortable doing that. Highly recommend. Then I also highly recommend we make a spreadsheet, love a good spreadsheet, or some way to track the roles we're applying for. This will be helpful when a recruiter reaches out to interview you, so you know what on earth they're going to interview you about once you're honestly possibly hundreds of applications deep sometimes. This is what I use, for example. I also have a separate spreadsheet to track the interviews with the companies I'm actively interviewing for, and I go ham, but it's up to you if you want to also. Next, and this is really helpful, set a routine for yourself at least on weekdays. Then give yourself weekends to yourself if you can. Applying for jobs is like a full-time job, so I recommend running it like a business. I also advise considering your budget. How much are you going to spend on your needs and wants? In addition, what's the lowest salary you can take to keep taking care of yourself in the instance that you need to take a role to survive while you keep applying for roles that would help you thrive? And finally, who's going to be your support system? Which friends and or family members can you lean on if you get laid off? Who in your network may be able to help refer you into their company? Who can be your references so you have a list ready to go? These are all good things to think of beforehand so you can jump right in and put this checklist into action if needed. Okay, this last part is a very important thing for us to at least mention, which is how you can be a good friend to someone you know who was laid off, because chances are now we all know someone. And I'll share resources I have for you to share with them or for yourself if you're laid off too. Now, the thing that was most upsetting to me when I was laid off was the insensitive comments about the layoff, namely joking that I was fired. A layoff is not a firing. A layoff is not the person who was laid off's fault in the least. The company could not afford them, and it was the company that overhired, didn't meet its targets, and had to course correct its bad decisions, often impacting the people who work at the company. So please be mindful and sensitive when you're addressing someone who has been laid off. Being laid off is listed as the 7th most stressful life event a person can have. So let's be kind. People going through layoffs are grieving a loss, and it's a big loss, namely their ability to support themselves financially through work. And that's a big deal, and why supportive friends like you are really important to have during this season in their lives. You can also support those in your network who have been laid off by being a reference for them, by referring them to your company, by letting them know about roles in your company, by maybe introducing them to recruiters you've worked with in the past. Of course, if you really do recommend them, because it's understandable, your reputation is also on the line. But if you have connections or opportunities you can share with someone, or a LinkedIn recommendation you can write them, it does make a big difference. I got the blessing of choosing between 2 roles I didn't even apply for the second time I was laid off because my network reached out to me for both of those roles. Extend a hand now, of course, without expecting anything back, and people will remember that you did and will extend a hand to you when you need it too. Also, if you know you might be laid off, please do take a moment to create a little contingency plan for your colleagues if you can. I wasn't supposed to know I was being laid off the last time I was, but I knew that the burden of all my work was about to fall on one of my incredible direct reports because unfortunately that's how the company worked, and I made him a contingency plan with all the things I was currently working on, the things that need to be prioritized first should I leave, all the documents and files he need to be successful, and the requests that I had gotten recently from our customers that I was working on for fulfilling their requests that I didn't want falling through the cracks once I had gone in order to continue supporting them. So definitely ensure your colleagues are set up for success if you leave to the best of your ability if you can. Upload your work they'll need to access on shared drives. Just whatever you can do. If you're screwed over, that will minimize the impact of it screwing over them too. They will remember you did that for them. And finally, please lend an ear and your words of wisdom and encouragement if they need those too, if you have the emotional capacity to do so, to your friends experiencing a layoff. Please be someone others can lean on when you're feeling strong enough to support them. Someday they just may do that for you too, though that's not the reason I'm saying to do that. But giving can definitely feel better than receiving, and you're helping yourself too when you're extending your hand or your ear or your words of encouragement to someone else. You can see outside the situation they're in the bigger picture when they're deep in it. And it's so helpful when you're in it too to have someone outside of it telling you it's going to be okay and that they believe in you. I've also created a perfectly giftable item too that I'd be so grateful if you could share with them called the Layoff Journal, which is a journal book hybrid to help those who've been laid off heal, regain confidence, and take practical steps to pursue a successful future, and makes a really thoughtful gift for anyone who's been laid off. And you can find it on Amazon, which I'll link in the show notes here, or you can also learn more about it at juliebethany.com/the-layoff-journal. I also have episode 46 of the show, the one before this, which is part 1, specifically made for them if they want support directly, and actually also have an additional episode I made during the first time I was laid off about the emotional impacts of layoffs, which is episode number 28. I also will continue creating resources and uploading them to juliebethany.com, sharing them on this show, of course, and sharing them on the gram where I'm most active at juliebethany, and which happens to be where I'd love to continue hanging out with you too. Okay. I hope you go today and start to live the life of your dreams as the best, most authentic, truest to you version of yourself you can be. Because when you do that, it shows others it's possible for them too. And even in the hard times, like if you are laid off, you can still make the most of what you've been given and give it your all to empower yourself to enjoy this one precious life you've been given to the fullest, because you absolutely deserve that gift that only you can give to yourself. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to see you soon. Bye for now, and best of luck. I hope that no layoffs come your way, but if you ever need the support, I'm here for you. Bye.
You say hello? Hello. Okay.
And here we have Kippen, per usual. Can you say hello?
Hello?
Oh, she's so sleepy. She's over it. She's like, I'm not doing it today. You say hi? Yes. Licking her lips because she knows there's treats coming. Okay, bye, friends.
Thank you, baby.
If you or a loved one were recently laid off, this is for you. When I was laid off, I had no idea the massive emotional impact it was going to have on me. And I really wish there was a guide that talked more about that and helped me work through that, unlike so many of the resources I was finding that were only discussing the financial impact or how to set up your resume. I had wished for something in that moment that really acknowledged the deep emotional impact layoffs have on someone and helped me work through it. So I created it. The Layoff Journal is my heart and soul poured into something that is specifically meant for anyone going through a layoff. I infused my own stories and research in there to comfort anyone in that position, and also have prompts and frameworks that help you move through how you're feeling, how you redefine what's true, help you re-engage with your life, and really set in motion the next phase of your life and release what once was in order to receive all of the amazing things that are meant for you next, and to help you know you're not alone. Take a look. I hope it really helps.